All right, welcome back, yWhales. Today we have a really interesting one because it's a merge of both physical and blockchain. And that we're here with the team from Avado, but I'm going to let Mr. Stefan go ahead and kick this one off and introduce these guys.
Yeah, sure. So I've known these guys. Bernd lives in Zug as well. So I've kind of met him through just being, I guess, in the blockchain space. And he is one of like the original, he's been involved with Ethereum for a long time. And so he has been super helpful for me. And he's got a super cool product. And so I mentioned in the yWhales chat, and everyone was really interested. So I figured I want to get them in. And we had a super cool discussion a few days ago, actually, about what happens with the ETH merge. And so that's kind of what I wanted to bring these guys on. It seemed very timely, and they've got a super cool product.
Cool. So you want us to introduce ourselves real quick? Or?
Yeah, so
sure, give us some background.
Yeah, should I kick it off? Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Bernd. As Stefan mentioned, I live in Zug. I moved here in 2014, just from Germany, from Frankfurt, and not because of crypto, but I got into crypto then in 2015. Interesting story, I'll tell it later if anyone is interested. And yeah, that's me. I'm Bernd in Zug.
Yeah, right. So my name is Stefan. I'm just visiting Bernd. I actually live in Belgium myself. I've also been in the crypto space since like late 2015. Yeah, so we've known each other for all that time, I guess. And yeah, we're doing the Avado Team together. So that's me.
Fabulous. So let's jump right into kind of the first and foremost is what initially brought you guys into the blockchain? I mean, was it Bitcoin or, what kind of drew you guys into saying, I want to be a professional, Web3 type person?
Go ahead. Yeah. So my background is in IT. So I studied informatics in Antwerp in the university there. And then I started a company, a software company. And then in 2015, we were working for the city of Antwerp. And their people, let's say the government bodies, they wanted to stimulate that people, so that their citizens basically were to be more more autonomous, basically. So all the services that they provide to the citizens, they wanted to make it more like a sort of a self-service thing. And then we were sort of a think tank that needed to come up with new solutions. And then we bumped into a project that's by coincidence runs on Ethereum. And then we said, yeah, we looked at Ethereum and it sort of ticked all the boxes of the things that we needed to make citizens more self-sovereign. And then we started to build all kinds of solutions and demos and so forth, and then pitching them to all the government agencies there, to make that work. So that's how I got into contact with blockchain. And then later on, we sort of split from the city of Antwerp because it's as you know, bureaucracy, it goes very slow. So we wanted to have a more fast pace. And then we started our own project with a couple of people from the city of Antwerp. And that's how I met Bernd together with that group. And then we kicked off our own project into the block space. So that's how I rolled into it. So I haven't really been into Bitcoin. So my journey really started at sort of when Ethereum got launched their mainnet. That's sort of when I rolled in. So we were very early in building all these smart contracts, doing experiments. The technology back in those days was really at a very primitive level. That tooling that exists today didn't exist back then. So it was really adventurous.
I don't think anyone will ever look back and say that you had a bad entry point into Web3. So that's really, such foresight timing to look at Ethereum when a lot of people thought still that Bitcoin and everything else was a scam. They still think that today in some cases. So that's fantastic.
True.
Wait, did Antwerp actually ever build anything? Did the city of Antwerp actually launch anything? Or it was just kind of a very early that never went anywhere?
Well, so we sort of built what we call a tool belt. So there were all things like a sort of small community. Think of a few blocks, people that live on a certain block, they could launch their own token. So when they did something good for it, their local neighborhoods, that they could actually earn a coin and then exchange value with a coin. So there's also the way that the city would support it was they have some sort of affiliate, not really an affiliate, but sort of a bonus point. So if you do something good, for example, you go a lot to the library, then you also got like points that you can exchange to get free access to museums that are normally to be paid for. So they would like stimulate healthy citizens and so forth. And those were also use cases that we could use on blockchain by issuing coins. Now, I don't know the current state of it because, as I said, we left it in like end of 2016. But I know there were like more like proof of concepts being rolled out. So, but I don't actually know what the status is right now. I think it's with like in a lot of cities, they do a lot of experimentations, but it doesn't really come to fruition because it's still, I think the user interface is one of the big barriers to entry. Like people, you have to learn your citizens how to use wallets and like set up wallets and accounts and so forth. So it's all not very convenient yet.
That's so cool though to think about. I mean, the thought of neighbors just having their own currency.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, also just the fact that the city got involved that early. That's so. Is all of the country pretty forward thinking on crypto, or was just a random coincidence that you guys got lucky, but this kind of shifted?
Yeah, actually, I think we sort of took our liberty. Like I said, it was some sort of a think tank we were in. It was like a very small group, like 4 people. And we sort of got like a carte blanche, as we say in our country. So yeah, we just introduced it. We were not asked like, oh, this is like Ethereum. Can you like figure out what it is? So it was really the necessities of what the sort of the citizens need. How can we improve their life? And then we just stumbled upon Ethereum. And I think it's a very sort of correct way to approach things. So a lot of companies and a lot of initiatives that you see, they say like, oh, we have blockchain. Can we sort of invent some problem around it so that we can justify the use of blockchain? But there, I think it was really authentic. Like we're just looking for any technology. And yeah, then that's just fits the whole sort of narrative that we're looking for.
Okay, so my background is totally diverse. So I started off in professional sports, my first career. I worked for the NFL actually in Europe. And that was my longest career until now. It's 11 years I worked for the NFL. I was a scout and searched for young talents in Europe that could go to high school and then college and then NFL. I managed to get 5 players into the NFL actually, 5 German players. So it was pretty good. But then this league closed and then I went more into the digital space because it was more interesting to me. And I worked for Deutsche Telekom, but that was almost the same like the city of Antwerp. It was very slow. They had processes. They didn't even care about the section that we worked in, even though we had a revenue of $100 million. That was just a rounding error in the $60 billion that the Deutsche Telekom made. So they didn't change anything for us. So I was really annoyed. After 6 years, I was happy that my wife got a job offer in Switzerland, and that's how I moved to Switzerland. So I just quit my job there. And the funny part is that she had a job in Lucerne. That was why we moved here. And I was thinking I probably will have a job in Zurich. So we chose the middle to find a spot to live in. And that's Zug. You know, Zug is like 30 minutes to Zurich and 30 minutes to Lucerne. So it's really convenient for both of us. Or was back then. So then I started to look for a job, and I had a very diverse background, so nobody wanted me. And I finally found a position for online marketing with a startup that did a fintech startup, you would call it. So I worked there, and I managed to get them, convince them that they shouldn't do advertising. They should do something else. They should do lending, peer-to-peer lending as a business model, because they had a lot of users from banks, and because you could combine all your bank accounts into one user interface. So you could use your credit card, your regular bank account, whatever, in one user interface and do interactions. So I convinced them to do a peer-to-peer lending solution. And when I presented it to the developers, it was in 2014, one of them took me aside and said, hey, what you're building is nice, but there's a protocol that covers that. It's called blockchain. Have you heard of that? And I was like, blockchain not? And he said, have you heard of Bitcoin? He said, yeah, I heard of Bitcoin, but I don't know what the difference is to my online banking because I can already send money from electronically, naively as I thought. So then he explained it to me, and he said, this is really a peer-to-peer protocol that you can use to transfer values, and it doesn't need any middleman. Like the service you're providing now is interesting, but it is really the middleman that's going to be replaced. And we see it in DeFi lending today. There's no company doing it. It's a protocol. So it's really funny back then that he explained it to me, and I was so hooked from that moment on. And actually, this company, when I presented the solution, they said, "That's great solution. We'll build it, but not with you." So I got kicked out of the company, and so I had to find a new occupation. I had to find something to work on. So I was going into blockchain then because it was interesting to me, and I was not a technical person. I'm not a math guru or something. So I'm just interested in the business behind it. So I looked into the space and tried to find podcasts, which is back then there was nothing really. You couldn't find anything. So I remember exactly what I found. It was the Futures Thinkers podcast. No, I don't know if you heard of that, but it's a very probably small, tiny podcast. But at least they had somebody on talking about blockchain, and it was Vitalik Buterin. He was talking about his vision of the world computer. So he explained what he thinks Bitcoin is missing and why he needs an upgrade, sort of, And that was in early 2015. So he already got people rallied behind this project, and he was already building it. But then it was the first time I heard about it. And the funny story is that he built a foundation in Zug. So his company, his setup was in Zug, just 15 minutes from where I lived. So I heard this podcast. I searched the internet about this organization and found that they're just 15 minutes from where I live. So I simply went there. I knocked on the door and somebody opened. It was a guy in a jumpsuit, kind of, funny people there working there. And I just said, I don't know if I can help you guys, but I would love to be involved. Is there anything I can do for you? And then since I was always involved in setting up organizations, building businesses, and so on, it was a good timing because the foundation was just created and they had a new, they had the first managing director, and Ming Chan, and she was sort of struggling with all the things that had to be done. It was such a huge organization already that they couldn't manage all the people, and so I helped her structure it a bit. And so that's how I came to it. And it was really funny because I was sometimes sitting next to Vitalik. I never really spoke to him. It was really because he was on such a different level than I was. He was totally in this math and crypto space that I'd never, even today it's hard for me to understand. But we sat next to each other sometimes and worked on things, but he worked on totally different things than I did. And but I was able to help them in a field where they didn't have any expertise because they were all math and crypto and developer gurus, but didn't care about organizational structures and how to have a good run rate, and who to hire, who to fire, and things like that. How to do this even. So that was my lucky moment, so to speak, to get into that organization. And they took me on the advisory board then. So I was sort of 2 years on the advisory board until 2017. And through the network that I built, because what they also did was they anybody that was interested in this technology in Switzerland contacted them. And they pointed it towards me. You explain it to them. You can sort of adapt to it in their language. These were all business people, like insurance companies, banks, all the consulting companies. They all wanted to understand this technology. So I was together with a good friend of mine, Jessen, who's now with the NEAR Foundation. We were visiting all these companies and explaining what is Ethereum, what is blockchain, what is cryptocurrency to them back in 2015, and that's how I built my network. And from that point on, I met a lot of interesting people that were building stuff. And the most interesting project I found back then was the project that Stefan was working on in Belgium. And they were looking for somebody that also, again, could help on the administrative side more, on the business side. So that's how I joined this project. And Stefan and I are still working together. So it was really fruitful.
Well, so lots of stories that we need to dive into a little bit more, because there's so little on the history of Ethereum and really the history of the blockchain overall. People talk about the coins and what they've done, but the building of the business, the story that you just shared is not uncommon for tech startups. They have a fabulous idea. They have a genius founder that driving a team, and no one thinks about how to pay the bills, how to market it, how to make sure that there's actually able to be used by normal human beings. And so, and clearly no one was thinking about gas prices back then because they're still not now. And as I'm watching, it's at 1,500 for slow is what gas is at right now. So, I mean, it's amazing to see from the technology from both of you guys kind of discovering it at the same moment. And today, it's changed the world. It will continue to change the world forever. ETH, I believe, will live on, forever along with Bitcoin. But, looking back then, did you really think that this was going to be as big as Apple, as big as, IBM and some of these other ones? I mean, $500 billion right now.
Yeah, I think it will be way bigger. This will really be a technology that's like the internet. It's not a company. It's like the internet. So it's a technology that everybody can use and will use or is using already. But even in the small scale we use it today, this will be way, way bigger because it allows for transfer of value through the internet. And that was missing on the internet itself. So I think to me, it's going to be way bigger than now. And it's not a company. It's like a country, actually. Because you could see now this is a global country that has its own currency. Like the world currency right now is USD, but this could be easily replaced by a non-government controlled currency. Now I'm preaching, or it's like
this is what we do all day long. Like what we can start talking about the fall of governments. Which one goes first? No.
Wait, I'm curious though. Did you, when you knocked on their door, did you were you like, holy shit, this is going to change everything? Or were you more like, oh, this sounds kind of cool, I should go knock on their door? Like, what was what was the team's expectation? Like, did everyone there, did they know where it was going? Was it much more of like, I don't know, this looks kind of cool, like, let's keep doing some of that? Like, what was early on? How was it?
No, they didn't see it that way, because I see people now that were involved back in the days. They're still astonished of what came to them, what happened to them. So it was definitely unforeseeable for the people. It was just that they saw something they could change, and they even saw that it was more like, we need to change Bitcoin because we like Bitcoin, but it has so many downsides yet. It's not programmable. You cannot build anything on top of it and stuff like that. So this was the motivation to improve something they already liked, but not to change the world. Maybe that, they already had sort of the vision of this could change the world, but it was more like, we can do this. We have the knowledge. We are creative. We know, or at least have an idea of what we could change. Let's do it. Let's see how it works. And it's totally iterative. So it's not like they had the vision and now they're building it and it will be in 5 years it will be done like they envisioned it. No, that's not going to happen. So it's totally pivoting all the time.
Yeah. So for me, like in the beginning, it was like all these fundamentals were being built. Now, what we saw very early on that. So the whole concept that you sort of drop the monopoly of a government that creates value, so that can create basically issue currency, that was so unthought of and unheard of. But like you see all the DeFi tools that are now being built and like the level of complexity that it is at right now, back in those days, it was really, if you look at the website back then, Ethereum, it just like said Ethereum, the world computer. It was like, oh, let's decentralize computing. That was basically the thing. But just by building all these primitives, I think it was clear that this was something to come. Although in the beginning that vision was certainly not as clear cut as it is right now. Now, what was for me appealing to really start diving from like a technology perspective, because like I'm really a techie guy, is that so the fact that you could start building on these with these smart contracts. So I usually have like these cycles, these technology cycles, where you say like a technology has to be like 10 times better than the previous one before it will actually be replacing the old technology. But here we came to a case where like this is something that wasn't possible before. And so it was really like, it's pretty common that people say like the internet, as we know it right now, like Web 2 was sort of the democratization of exchange of information. And now Web 3 is like the democratization of the exchange of value. And so you really got something new in your hands. So totally like a new tool, like a kid getting like a new tool, like what you're going to do with it. And I think that led into this whole like DeFi experience as we have it today. So that was really like inspiring to see that you just like the realization that you have like a whole new concept in your hands. And I think for now, these DeFi tools, it's not about like improving like the existing financial system, but all these new things that just weren't possible before, like flash loans, for example. Like in traditional financial works, such a thing that doesn't exist, or at least it's not accessible for everybody. And like it's really that democratization of exchange of value that's really taking place right now, and it's so inspiring to see.
You know, it's. I love hearing you guys who have been really like Ethereum is the start of internet, you know, kind of the internet computer, and as Alex said, and now like I really, as much as I want to keep going down the memory road, and we'll probably pull a little bit over. Here's two guys that really were there for the birth of Ethereum, you know, in your own ways, that you kind of discovered it before it was really anything. Tell us what you're working on now.
Yeah, so actually the projects we participated in showed us the downsides or the parts that were still missing in building on top of this technology. And mostly what we saw is that decentralization is really, really hard. It's actually not a feature, it's a bug. It's something you have to sort of overcome to make it work, because it's makes many things more difficult than if you have it centralized. But this whole technology is built on decentralization. So if you compare it to the internet itself, the internet also started very decentralized. But then internet service providers came into play that had sort of more power to run these nodes. And at the end, they managed to the network. And since they're in one jurisdiction, they are driven or are under the control of the jurisdiction of the government. So now you have censorship on the internet, which in the beginning was not the idea of it. You know, it was an open protocol. And so we also see that in blockchain technology, because it should be decentralized, but a lot of people are running it on centralized cloud services, like AWS, for example. So, and we even use that in our projects, because it was more convenient to run it on DigitalOcean or something else. But if you think about it, this is the first step into centralization again, where you have bottlenecks that are centralized, and they can at some point control it, or they can shut down a network if they need to by a government. Yeah? So that's why we sort of believe or wanted to build something that keeps these networks decentralized. And the only thing that helps there is that if everybody would run a node. So if you run a node, this is your access point to a blockchain, and you can do your transaction through this access point to the blockchain. Nobody can stop you doing that. And but if you use a third party, then this third party has control over that. They can stop you from doing this interaction. So a lot of services that a lot of wallets that you use today are still using a centralized node or point in their architecture. So we built, or we were part of a project that built an interesting software that was able to was a convenient user interface to run a node. It was based on Ethereum, first of all. So it was really made for Ethereum, that more people run nodes at home. And when we presented this, we at expos, then we always had a computer with us to showcase it, because it had to run on a computer. But actually, it was a software that anybody could use. And but every time we showed this, people came up to our booth and picked up this computer, were looking at it and said, "Wow, this is interesting." And we said, "No, it's a software." "Yeah, but this is interesting." And since I'm a business guy, I said, "Yeah, okay, well, I can sell you this. If you want to have it on a computer," which was not the purpose, but why not sell it as a package? The software and the computer. So Stefan and I, sort of were a spin-off now of that project, created our own project, our own brand, used the software initially, but now also built more around it, and sort of made it even more convenient, and are selling it now on a specific computer, because we also believe that it's important to have a specific hardware that matches perfectly with the software. So it's more the Apple approach than the Android approach. That's how I like to explain it. So it's more like you know exactly what you are using, what kind of CPUs, memory and drive you have, the storage, so that if the user has a problem, we can always look at least the hardware that we gave him to inspect that. There's many other moving parts outside of our hardware, like the access to the internet and so on. But that makes it easier for us to maintain the project. That's how we started. And it was actually in 2018. So at the end of 2018, we started it. And we sold decentralization. So that's also an interesting part, that we try to sell. This is a tool that keeps your blockchain decentralized. But this is a very, very small group of people that's interested in that. So today we're selling stake at home. So now it's the same concept beneath it. We're selling decentralization, but the motivation for people to buy it is they want to stake their cryptocurrency on a blockchain. And they don't want to pay any fees to a third party that manages it for them, which is also a centralized service. And at the end, so it's two purposes that we feed. Kind of is you earn 100% of the reward from the staking, and you decentralize the network of your choice. So that's why we built this. Yeah. Sorry, now it's...
Hey, just for our audience, I'm curious. So in 2018, was Ethereum already proof of stake? Or it was still, it's still proof of work now, but what was it doing in 2018? Was it just basically a client? It was no staking involved yet?
Yeah, no. So back in those days, it was just like proof of work. So you could do two things. So either you run a miner, so like with a GPU card, so like these mining rigs that you could run, or you could also just run a validating node. And what a validating node is, it doesn't produce any new blocks, but it still holds a full copy of the whole state. So the full blockchain historical data is stored on your hard disk. It participates in all this peer-to-peer connection with all these other nodes, so it sort of makes the network more resilient. And so we were sort of selling that aspect, so that you can be part of the network. You're not going to earn anything because it's like proof of work, and these computers that we sell, they don't have any like GPU cards, so you cannot mine like in proof of work style of mining. So you could like participate, but like Bernd said, it was like decentralizing selling the decentralization aspect, which at that point like attracted a very small niche of people, which was sort of our initial audience. But if you sort of fast forward to today, so these staking solutions, so a lot of things haven't changed for the better, in the sense that a lot of projects, like if you look at any blockchain that's like proof of stake, you think of like Ethereum now, or Avalanche, Near even. Like you have like a handful of blockchains that you can actually participate in. But the way you have to do it right now is you have to go to the website, You have to read through all that documentation, like pages and pages of setting how to set up your own node. So they basically just sell or like provide software on their site. So they leave the end user sort of in the dark, like how can I actually participate now? So it's very cumbersome for a user to actually read through all that. But then they also have to, like Bernd said, so we try to standardize that hardware. So we sort of did the research, like what kind of hardware do you actually need? What kind of disk? What's the disk size that you need? What's the amount of memory that this needs? The CPU power that it requires and so forth. And that sort of was the result that resulted in the hardware that we are currently offering. And then we also did all the research, like how do we have to, we sort of read through all that documentation and we built like a ready-to-go package. And we sort of wrap that with a nice packaging, which is like a user interface. To present it to our users, because a lot of that software usually is just like command line stuff. And if there's anything that a lot of people hate, is like to go into a command line and start typing all kind of these weird commands. It's either because they don't have the technical knowledge, or like it's very, like a lot of people are just afraid to touch it, to do something wrong, because you're actually like playing with your money, so you don't want anything to go wrong. So it's more convenient if somebody holds your hand and just like presents like all the rest of the internet and all these DeFi apps, just with a graphical user interface.
So for you, ETH 2.0 is, oh, go ahead, Jay.
Oh, no, I was going to say, so we have here two of the very rare business people in blockchains that are actually somewhat concerned about the user experience. And that's rare, because clearly, like on the other end of this is like MetaMask, who just doesn't care one bit, figure it out or don't. It's the way it's going to be. And so, to me, it's really the business problem that you guys are trying to solve is a huge one, because, and please correct me, because I know I'm going to get the stat wrong, but I saw something that there's like an incredibly high percentage of Ethereum is actually running on AWS, like something like around 60% of AWS of Ethereum nodes are inside of Amazon Web Services.
That's correct. I think it's even more, but yes.
So
that's kind of ironic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so here's the problem is, I mean, we've launched a marketplace and a token, NFT and whatnot, and you guys are going to get one for being on the show, but there's no platform that can load our objects quick enough. Like if you click on it and you wait 90 seconds, people are going to be like, well, it's obviously broken. No, that's what, Filecoin and all these other guys, it just takes. You put it on AWS and it loads right like that. And there's always the plan, you'll move it later, but you're not the problem is as we're hearing right now, no one's investing in the systems today when they desperately need the adoption. So talk me through, like you've got one there. I saw you hold one up earlier. So I'm a retail guy. This is one of the rare times there's a physical product. Yeah, look at that. So just walk us through, like when someone opens this up, there's you talk through the theory behind it. What does it do? Like what are the main points of what a user, when they open this and plug it into their system, can expect?
So this is the device. So it's not really big, but it's also not a small device. Weighs about 1.5 kilos. It has a few ports that you can see, but actually you just need power and internet. So you just connect the Ethernet cable of your router in here and connect it to the router. You put energy to it and it runs. And then it has a Wi-Fi integrated. So you have two antennas that you put on, and it creates its own Wi-Fi network. And that's how you connect to it. So you just take your own computer, your cell phone, whatever, you connect to the Wi-Fi that this produces, and then you have access to the user interface. It's like a website, but the website is on the device itself. So it's not propagated to the internet itself. So, and then you have an app store, or like we call it a dApps store, because it should be decentralized applications. There's a dApps store that offers you any kind of chain or whatever we put on there. And so now we have Ethereum for staking, we have Avalanche for staking, we have Quantum for staking, but we also have Bitcoin, Monero, and other clients on it. And you just search through what you want to have. You click install, and then the machine spins it up. That's the magic that Stefan produces. I'm not doing that. So it's really like you push a button and it says, yeah, I'm syncing now, and maybe it takes a day or 2 days because these chains are getting huge. That they need a lot of disk space, and so it uses your energy, it uses your bandwidth. That's the cost you have, the running cost you will have. Other than that, this machine is quiet because it doesn't have any moving parts in it. So it's really meant to be in your living room because most of the routers are in the living room or somewhere near. So it's totally quiet, doesn't do any sounds, anything, and it just runs. It's 24/7 on. You don't have to worry about it. It's you can check on it from any device, even externally. So we have a system on it that you can connect to it remote. And just check on the box, even if you're on holidays, and see how it works.
So we can connect an entire Ethereum. So this is an Ethereum node, not a miner mode, but it's a validator mode.
Yeah. So the main difference is that this thing, since it's proof of stake, it doesn't gobble up a lot of energy. Yeah? Mining, like in a traditional proof of work, mining is sort of converting electricity into consensus on a blockchain level. What this is like you have to deposit your stake on it, and then it's your stake that is literally at stake here for producing new blocks. So that means that this is very energy efficient. So the running cost for electricity is about $10 or so a year for this, because it just has a small power outlets. So it just takes as much power as your router, so to speak.
How much memory does it have?
Yeah, it depends. So we have a model with 16 gigabytes RAM and one with 32 gigabytes of RAM.
This one comes with 32, so it could even be a 64 is the max that we can put on this.
So 64 of RAM, and then what's the storage to hold Ethereum, any of these chains on there? Yeah, do you have to plug a flash drive in?
Yeah, there's different ways you can run the Ethereum chain. So there's the regular one that we have on this, or the default one is called the Geth client that you would run, and it's right now it has a storage of about almost 1 terabyte. So this device comes with either 2 terabytes or 4 terabytes. We now even add one very soon for 8 terabytes of disk space. So this is more future-proof, let's say. Even the 2 terabytes. So the 1 terabyte is now, since the genesis of Ethereum until today, is 1 terabyte. So it should last maybe 2.5 years. We sort of expect the storage to be available. But if you want to be more future-proof, you just buy the 4 terabyte or the 8 terabyte. And the good thing about this device is you can also run several chains on it. So because the bandwidth is also not such a huge topic, you'll not you can still watch Netflix, and stuff while this is syncing the blockchain. So I have a device that is running Avalanche, Quantum, and I don't know what else. So there's several chains on one device that it can run. It's mainly the storage the storage that is limiting the amount of chains you want to run. And then for validators, you have to understand you don't need more than one chain or Geth client, let's say for Ethereum, to run multiple validators. So you can stake 32 ETH or you can stake 320 ETH if you have 10 of these validators running. There's users that said they have more than 100 validators running on one device. So that's it's a substantial.
It's good to be them.
They have somehow, and they trust this machine to manage that well. So, and it's not let them down yet. So, knock on wood.
Hey, I just want to back out a little bit. So just for the people kind of listening. So, okay, what this device does effectively is it lets you stake your own Ethereum. So you can participate on consensus, right? And basically what you do is if you have 32 ETH, which is the amount required to have one node to stake, right? Effectively, I quote unquote put my 32 ETH onto the device, and then I become part of effectively validating Ethereum, and I get paid a fee, right? I get 7% right now on 7% per year.
Yeah, something like that. It's actually a little lower these days. I think it's around 5% or so. But it's true with like one small nuance, that is that the 32 ETH that you deposit, it's not actually on the device that you deposited, but it's in the deposit contract on chain. So that means that even if this device would be stolen or get hacked somehow, people will not be able to sort of withdraw your 32 ETH or whatever the amount of validators that you're running on there. So that's a small nuance, but from a security point of view, it makes a big difference, of course.
So if you've got a group of friends, you can. It doesn't have to be all of yours, because the wallets are still holding it on the contract. So you can have, like we've got, thousands of people around the world, and if we said we want to fire up a bunch of these all over the place, everyone can stake their own to these nodes.
Yeah, true, but it's always because that's how the Ethereum protocol works. It's always in increments of 32 ETH. But what we could do, there's enough trust between Bernd and I. So if we would pool together 32 ETH, and I would get like a chunk of that 32 ETH, and Bernd tops it up until 32 ETH, and Bernd can stake on one machine. And then later on, we can share the profits. So that could also work.
It's a social trust, how we call it. So it would be just friends have to trust each other, because then only one person, sort of key deposits on chain. So it's not that we can put together a smart contract that then deposits. So it must be one transaction, one wallet.
So it's really designed for single family homes where you kind of know everyone, or really close drinking buddies.
Yeah, true.
Drinking buddies with a lot of ETH.
Hey, the best kind to have.
I'm about to say, that's right. It's okay, just for everyone. So you need 32 ETH. You cannot do it with 2 ETH. It doesn't work, right? You need actually around 32.
Yeah, that's right. So the actual use case for this device is indeed people that say, okay, I have the capital to stake myself and to run my own validator. And for those people, we actually provide a device or a solution that offers you in total a better yield than if you would, for example, stake on an exchange. Because if you stake on an exchange, then the exchange will take a cut of the rewards that you get. As with this box, it's just like one-time purchase, and then you get to keep all these rewards that you're producing yourself by participating in proof of stake. And that means at the price point that Ether currently is, that means you just like amortize this device in a couple of months, and then you just start like earning more. Of course, in the case of the exchange, you also get a certain reward. So it's about like 10 to 12 months at current prices. That there's sort of still a difference between staking on an exchange and staking yourself. But as we believe that staking is like a long-term game, I mean, you're not going to stake for like 2 months or 3 months. You're probably going to stake for multiple years in a row. That made it for us a no-brainer to say, yeah, we have to do this because it just makes more sense. Not only from a financial perspective, but also from the decentralization that ethos, like we're like participating in decentralization. So not only do you have the problem like AWS, like everybody's putting like all the adjacent services around blockchain on centralized infrastructure, but if we're also going to send all our tokens to like one centralized place, like an exchange to stake, like how are we changing the world in that case? So it's sort of like partially like a financial incentive, but also sort of our support for decentralization.
Yeah, that's a really cool point, because I think one of the things that's really interesting, especially with, and I listen to loads of podcasts, right? All the ETH maxi point is always like, oh, it's super decentralized, right? I'm like, okay, but like with ETH 2.0, it's just all at exchanges. I mean, what percentage of Ethereum like is going to be directly staked by people versus what giant percentage is going to end up being staked through the exchanges? So I love what you guys are doing from that perspective. And I feel like that topic of like, yeah, I agree ETH1 is very decentralized with proof of work, obviously, but I think as it shifts to ETH2, because, I mean, by the way, what is the pricing? Because that's, I think, an interesting point, because I think a lot of things I keep hearing from Ethereum is like, oh, it's everyone can stake, right? It's very inexpensive, but the hardware requirements for ETH2 are actually reasonably substantial, right? I mean, it's not like a $50 device. No,
so the device itself is it comes either as $1,600 or 2,300 USD. That is sort of the device we recommend for staking on Ethereum. We have a device at $1,099, which has a lower CPU and less storage. That is more for other chains like Avalanche. You can use it for Quantum. You can use it for, or if you simply want to run a node on Bitcoin or any other chain. Or there's also services that we integrate that allow you to earn money just by renting out your bandwidth. For example, there's a VPN called Mysterium that you can download the package and you give people access to the internet through your internet point. So anybody from Turkey that wants to look at Wikipedia could go to Mysterium and use your endpoint to go to the internet in Switzerland where they can see Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is censored in Turkey. So that's another solution, and this is for the device that doesn't need that much storage, that doesn't have much processing power and so on.
And just real quick on the VPN, it's not exposing in any way your IP address. It's all mirrored in the cloud. So if I've got a building with a server room and gigabits of bandwidth I'm not using, and just said, hey, I have no issue being a VPN for others, it doesn't expose me in any way because it's all decentralized.
Yeah, exactly. So this protocol is called Mysterium, and they created this solution. It still uses your endpoint, but it doesn't show your IP address or anything. So your internet service provider could ask you, there's so much bandwidth going on or taken, what are you doing? You know, if they care about it. So that could be the only challenge. And they have two services. I don't want to go too deep into the service because it's their own product. It's hard for me to explain their own product, but they have a whitelisted group of people that use the VPN that is sort of sure that there is no, services used that you don't want them to use. And then there's a not whitelisted group of people. So that's there is a risk that you could take, but you can also just use the whitelisted group of people to access.
No, it's fabulous. Thank you for taking the time to explain that one.
Hey, yeah, we had a really cool discussion a few days ago about kind of what happens when the merge happens. Because obviously, this device becomes a lot more useful when the merge happens, right? I mean, right now, it's really just the beacon chain, and it doesn't really do the thing yet. I mean, it does, obviously, but it's not quite the same. So walk us through what happens when the merge happens and what changes for you guys.
Yeah, so right now, as you pointed out, Stefan, so right now we're only sort of getting the block subsidy. So every now and then, your Avado, if you're staking on Ethereum right now, it will produce a new block, and you're like rewarded for that. And then in between when you're producing blocks, you are attesting other people that produce blocks. So you're sort of verifying other people's work, and that also yields into a much smaller reward. So all in all, like it sort of juggles along, and you start earning ETH, which is, by the way, still locked. So it's still before the merge, all the rewards in your 32 ETH, you cannot withdraw it yet. So that's also like part of the risk you're taking. But what actually happens at the time of the merge is that the whole like Ethereum 1 will sort of be docked into that beacon chain. So that means that all the transactions will actually be sort of validated on that beacon chain. And what that changes is that right now, all the fees, like the transaction fees for all the transactions that go to the proof of work miners today, will go to the proof of stake validators. And that's like a huge change, because now you get these block subsidies, but after the merge, you will get these block subsidies plus all the transaction fees. And as you know, there were like recently like some blocks with due to these high gas prices, and probably also some people fat fingering. There were sometimes blocks. There was one block, for example, not so long ago, that had like 99 ETH as fees, like transaction fees in it. So imagine mining a block that has like a block reward of 99 ETH in gas fees. So that's huge. So that's one big change. So that's increased. So there's like another chunk of rewards being added to what you're doing as a validator. A second observation is that the merge itself will not solve like the scaling problem, sort of, or like the congestion that Ethereum currently has. And so, as you know, the congestion on Ethereum causes these gas fees to spike, and like causing people to pay a lot of money for including their transaction into a block. Now, so interestingly enough, so the merge doesn't solve that. It's only later when all these roll-ups and these sharding aspects come to life, which is like scheduled in later stages of Ethereum. But in between that time, so after the merge and before the actual Ethereum scaling comes to fruition, we'll probably be stuck with high gas prices. And so these high gas prices are very beneficial to proof of stake validators because they will like capture all these fees. So that's super interesting. So I think
Wait, does the merge not increase block space at all? I thought the merge did have an impact on, just because obviously with proof of work, I mean, there's just kind of inherent slowness because somebody needs to find the next block. So does the proof of stake switch not speed that up at all, or is there like no scaling benefit? I thought there was some.
Yeah, so the thing is, it doesn't really matter how it's done, because the rate in which you can like include transactions in a block, like in total, it will sort of stay the same. So that means that pressure to like keep these gas prices pretty high will stay the same. So I think there's not a lot that will change on that front. Sorry.
Interesting. So staking becomes a lot more interesting because suddenly, it's not locked in anymore after the merge either. Because right now, if I put my 32 ETH in, I can't get it out till the merge.
Yeah, that's right. And so, yeah, it's also speculation, of course, what will happen. But so the thing is, some people, they expect when the merge comes there, and so people will be able to withdraw their stake, their 32 ETH, including their like all the rewards that they've been aggregating for the last year. That they might like withdraw it and all dump it on the markets, and then like the price of Ethereum could tank during the merge. But actually, there's a good case to be made that like the opposite will actually happen, because imagine that I'm a validator. I'm actually validating myself, of course, on the chain. At the time that the merge comes, I sort of know that I will get more rewards than I'm currently getting. So that APY for Ethereum will certainly go up. So I would be crazy to, like, when the merge happens, all of a sudden, like, stop validating and like dump all my coins on the market. So it doesn't make any sense, certainly because I'm in there for the long haul. So yeah, I don't expect a lot of people to actually withdraw their ETH. So I think that potential dump that might happen might just not happen, and maybe the other way around. Like, people, when they see like, oh, these APYs are like going up and going up significantly, that they might actually take the step to say, yeah, I want to have a chunk of that. I want to participate. So it could even be, like I said, the inverse, that people are actually spinning up more validators post-merge.
Yeah, I really like that about the merge, just in general, like philosophically too, where right now the people who are mining Ethereum are not necessarily the people who own Ethereum, right? I'm sure there's a lot of miners that also then like just keep the whatever the Ethereum they mine, but like so many people have Ethereum and they don't mine because it's a totally different skill set to build giant warehouses with GPUs in it, right? So it kind of feels like it gives that power of back to kind of more the people who are actually participating. So I think that's super cool. And now the big key part is right now, all the crazy fees that Jay was talking about for $1,500, at least that's coming back to people who have Ethereum versus going to miners, right? So at least it's kind of going back to the community, or at least a larger part of the community. I'm guessing like the miners are part of the community, but at least it's like kind of everyone who has Ethereum can stake now and get part of those giant fees at least.
Yeah, so the interesting part also about like the difference between proof of work mining and proof of stake mining is that proof of work miners, they constantly need to sort of offload some of the coins that they're mining to pay for their operations, because they have like ongoing electricity costs and so forth. So like the running costs of proof of work is like very high for who participates in that. That's totally different from a proof of stake, like a validator, because the only thing which is required is like that upfront capital. Like the running cost for keeping a proof of stake validator running is like super low. Like I said, it's like $5 or like let's say $10 a year in electricity costs, and you just connect it to your home router. So, and that's already paid for. So it literally almost costs you nothing to keep on staking, and there's a very big difference with proof of work.
Yeah, I'm biting my tongue here because I'm the furthest thing from an ETH maxi. So And it's not that I don't believe ETH is going to be here forever. I just look at it's, as you said, the gas problems are going to continue to get worse. And I think there's some very interesting technology that solved some of those problems and is making, clear headway in a very, very fast way, which is why I absolutely love this product. And I'm sitting here because you've hedged your bets across multiple chains. If you're an ETH maxi, go for it. Absolutely. Run 5, 6, 7 of them. Nobody cares. If you want DOT, if you want Avalanche, if you want whatever the case is. And that to me is why this is interesting is years ago, there was, prior to Dropbox, there was a device I bought that you could hook and basically run your own little server from your house, and you could get your files from anywhere and everywhere conveniently, and you didn't have to pay for the bandwidth you already had. And to me, this is taking that to the next level, because now it's saying, I bought the currencies, I'm self-custodying, now I want, instead of having to go trust a third party or trust another protocol, this is just running on my house, running at home in my house. And if the house burns down, that's cool, because I still have access to that protocol and access to everything there. So it's a really, really interesting project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I thought the timing was super cool too. So when we were talking, right, I think just I wanted to dive into quickly, why is the timing pretty crucial right now? Because, so as soon as ETH 2.0 goes live, depending on what happens to the fees, obviously, but chances are your product's going to be, you're probably very excited for ETH 2, right? Because the demand for your product is going to go up a lot, is just my guess, based on if ETH staking right now it's kind of a hesitance of do I really want to lock in 32 ETH? We don't really know what the date of release for ETH 2 is yet. So it's kind of this up in the air. But so you're probably pretty psyched. And then, so how do you see that merge going, and how do you see everyone coming online and impacting your business?
The interesting part is also that right now, and I'm not sure if it will change post-merge. I think it won't. But so there's this concept of a validator queue. So if you want to be part of the validator pool, you have to do your deposit, and then you're thrown into a queue, a waiting list, because each day there are only so many new validators that the protocol allows to come online. So the interesting part there is that if that's that concept that I just talked about, there might be more because it becomes financially more attractive to be a staker. That a lot of people will say, all that ETH that they're sitting here in this wallet, why not put it to work? These APYs are going up, so let's take the step to do it. You might end up in that queue. And so if you looked at the queue, for example, before Ethereum launched, so then you had you could only do the deposit. And I think it was last year, the 1st of December, that they actually launched the proof of stake. There was a huge queue. So if you wanted to be part of that, some people had to wait for a week or something, or even longer, for their validator to be activated. So if a lot of new validators come online post-merge, if you're not in time, you might end up waiting quite a while and missing out on nice APYs. So that's...
Yeah, and that's probably kind of a lot of these things, right? That first few days is when the APYs are going to be wild, right? Because if it takes people a while to get set up, that short period of time, that's what we see in DeFi, right? When something launches 7 million% APY, right? And I'm sure Ethereum won't be that, right? Because there's no way. But even realistically, it might be really, really strong APYs for at least a short period of time. But so that's when we were talking. I'm oh shit, this is really cool. I got to bring this to the group, because now is kind of the time to get ready for this, right? Because if you have this, you have it set up, you're running. Who knows on how? And again, obviously, it could also just be that we're wrong and the fees are just going to lower themselves. But I don't know. I'm kind of with you guys. I think at least for a while, because so it's the fees go to the people who are staking, right? And so right now, how much is staked? I think we did the math. It's $5 billion of value or something.
It's just over 1 million ETH, so that's about 5 billion, of value.
So only 1% of ETH is staked right now, because the market cap is 500 billion, right?
Yeah, it's less than 1 ETH, 1%. Sorry.
Yeah.
But so I think the interesting part there is, right, just assuming that not a whole bunch more people start staking, basically the entire fees go to that 1% of people who are staked. Not 1%, 1% of tokens, of coins, I guess, that are staked.
Yeah.
Right. So it's going to be really interesting to see. And then obviously, if the APIs are nuts, then everyone's going to start staking. But as you're saying with the wait list, like who knows how long it takes them to come online. But I mean, the assumption will be that in the long run, that 1% turns into 20, 30, 40%, right? A lot more people are going to start staking as soon as the APYs go up and as soon as you can unstake. I think that's probably the bigger hurdle right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so what might also be an interesting metric is like how many validators, so like people that are actually running validators actually exist on the network, because obviously you could have people that like have 100 validators running on one box. So the amount of validators, so if you sort of divided 1 million by 32, you would say like, oh, there's like so many people validating, but that's not actually the truth, because if like one guy is like staking 5 validators or 10 or even 100 validators, it sort of smalls down that number. But it's without question that the number of actual like physical validators will rise tremendously over the next like 6 to 12 months. Yeah. It's very exciting for us.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's go ahead and take a half second. We've just had an hour recording, so we can take a little breather. You can put the box down. We've talked about the products. We can now, in the same sense, was there anything we missed about the products that you wanted to throw out there?
Well, we spoke a lot about Ethereum. I think it's I don't know if we covered enough that there's a lot of other opportunities existing now, but also there's the opportunity for any other project to join us and get into the dApp store. That's sort of an interesting part. That so the community we have, so every box that's out there is constantly getting new updates if there's new projects coming into the dApp store. So the dApp store is like your app store on the phone. It's we can add anything to it, or anybody can add their project to it, because we have an SDK that anybody can build their own package that fits on the Avado, and immediately the whole community can use the product. So if you need an onboarding process for your community, if you need new users, for example, if you're a new product, it's pretty easy, because you can spread it to our users, and especially if it's sort of incentivized, that just by running it or by providing something for it, like bandwidth or CPU power or memory storage, whatever, that the hardware gives, or even just running it for other users to use it, like a node. It immediately has a community that can use that, and so that's great, and it grows exponentially. If more projects come, they will bring their own community. More people will come, and the next project will have even more people that they can sort of present their project to. So I think that's also an interesting part to remember.
So really, you've done your best to future-proof this and make sure that you're not buying a new box every year. As new protocols and everything else get released.
Exactly, yeah. So you just see whatever new protocol comes out, and people or the community suggests projects to us. We reach out to the project and see if they're interested in supporting us technology-wise, because we don't know all the technologies inside out. But also financially, sometimes we ask for grants to get this developed. But also the maintenance is a cost factor. So we maintain all these packages so that users always have the latest version on their box that they can use. So that's a very convenient factor for your user, so that you don't have to worry about any upgrades like on these chains, but also any other project. If they have an upgrade, if they move to a new version, you don't have to worry about it, because it's integrated. It's updated automatically.
Awesome. And again, I love the product. I'm going to be ordering one here shortly, and then full disclosure, I don't own one today, but we'll get to that. But now, while we have you guys, and we have two, again, real futurists, because you guys were so early into this, let's just talk. If you have a few minutes of time, what do you guys are excited about today? What other projects that exist today that you guys are following closely that you really are just like, thinking this is new, this is cool, this is really going to change the world?
I think the right now we see a lot of projects in DeFi that's really, really interesting in this technology. And as Stefan explained before, there's things that you couldn't do before because it's sort of a protocol that does things for you. And a combination of things that in the financial world that most people don't even understand how they work, but now they create value. That's really, really interesting. I think that to me is the most interesting part right now. There's also NFTs, but that's to me a different section. I think that also the NFT space has a lot of interesting aspects. We use an NFT for the device as the warranty, for example, because it has a timestamp of when you buy the device. It has the information about the device, so we don't even have to know you as a user. You can just show the NFT or sign a transaction with the NFT behind, and we know the information. We can say, yeah, the warranty is still valid or not, and we can sort of work on that. So that's a different way of using an NFT in our case. So we will iterate on NFTs in our own project because we still think there's a lot of potential in NFTs. We already created a token drop based on an NFT. So that we said a new protocol that we added, Quantum, gave us a certain amount of tokens, but we only wanted to give it to people that run an Avado node. And so we based it on the NFT. So it was simply given to users that signed a transaction with the NFT. So
yeah, no, I completely wholeheartedly agree that NFTs are in their absolute infancy right now for what's capable, because we utilize them, and again, you'll see them here shortly. Essentially, there's mobile smart contracts that can move around the blockchain, and very very easily trackable, very easily verifiable. So that's the first I've heard about using it for a warranty. I love that idea.
Yeah. So it's interesting because there are like so many things around DeFi that people don't realize, but that just needs general computing. Like if you want to bridge tokens from one chain to the other, which is like the common practice in DeFi. Like few people realize that there's also like just software, like server software running to sort of enable these bridges, because they're like sort of signatures. Tokens have to be locked on one side, but then information has to go to the other side, so the other chain, so they can be unlocked over there or minted over there. And that's also like, it's sort of a group of people. And so with the emergence of these DAOs, it will become possible that people actually sort of join into that DAO to provide that service for like maintaining a bridge, for example, because maintaining a bridge or price oracles, those kind of things, it's all generic computing. And now it's usually all these projects, so projects that build like layer 2 solutions, they provide these bridges themselves. But again, that's also sort of a trust factor, because you have to trust that these bridges somebody keeps those bridges online, because otherwise you could be stuck with your tokens on one chain if you want to move to another chain. So that's clearly still an issue. So I expect that, like with the concept of DAOs, that this can really be sort of outsourced to people that could have a stake, and that membership of that DAO could be manifested as an NFT. And so you can actually earn rewards, because obviously there's a fee for transacting and like crossing a bridge from one chain to the other. And that could very easily be sort of spread out to all the participants on that sort of collaboratively maintain a bridge from one chain to the other, and then sort of also share those profits. And we also think that the Avado has a role in that, to either be like a provider of a bridge, so we could build a package that runs bridge software, and then you could participate somehow according to the rules of that DAO, that specific project. Maybe you also have to like put in a stake or whatever. So like the ways that could work are just up to your imagination. But you could also, so it's like the power of having a generic computer platform in your home where you can like give your small contribution to the blockchain. So it's not only running stuff on chain by running a blockchain node, but also being able to run these like adjacent services in a distributed way at home. And so interestingly enough, we're sort of applying this system also to ourselves, in the sense that we are also experimenting now with the concept of like creating a DAO, where sort of the NFT on the Avado would also be sort of your entry tickets to be eligible to participate in that DAO, where you could actually earn sort of tokens, like sort of Avado tokens for being online with your nodes. Because the thing that we want to stimulate is that as many people as possible having an Avado are online. Because once you're online, you can participate in like running a bridge. It's like the more uptime you have with your own nodes, the more valuable it is for you to be a participant in such a DAO that, for example, empowers such a bridge. And using a DAO, we could also like reward people for actually staying online with their Avado. So, I mean, there's a lot of things on the horizon. So we're very excited for what the future might bring, because there are like so many possibilities.
That's awesome. I literally, it's such a fascinating foresight you guys have on this.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's not, I mean, it's all kinds of software. So you have like these bridges, but you also have like validation on this layer 2. So if you look at Matic, at Polygon, for example, they also require validators. So like you are validating on Ethereum, you can also like validate on Polygon, for example. So you could just apply to be a validator there. And again, this just requires you to run some piece of software, but it also requires you to maintain that software, to update it. And that's all like the service that we provide on our platform. So you just like click, you deposit your stake, and you're good to go.
What's the, just out of curiosity, let's say I max this thing out. What's the most bandwidth this thing is pulling?
Well, yeah,
it's hard to say, but
yeah, it really depends on. So if you're synchronizing the chain from the start, because that's sort of the decentralized ethos that you sort of spin up, like an Ethereum node or a Bitcoin node or whatever, an Avalanche node, that you start from Genesis and you sort of pull in all that data. So like Bernd explained, the Ethereum chain is currently like at 1 terabyte. So that means you're looking at downloading 1 terabyte of data up front or in the beginning. But once that is done, like it drops down, because the only thing you then need to do is like catch up with the chain. So you have to download each block as it comes, and do some like peer-to-peer traffic. But it's not really noticeable. So on any, like if you just have broadband, like most users that are into this technology, it shouldn't be a problem. So we rarely have people that start complaining about bandwidth problems and so forth. And me, for example, at home, so my router and like most of the routers, they also support sort of prioritization of traffic. So that means you can sort of have the Avado box like use all your spare bandwidth. But if you're like go online and you start watching Netflix or anything, or like 5 people start streaming in your house, sort of the bandwidth of the Avado will be sort of pinched down until they get what it needs, sort of. So yeah, there are like all ways to go around bandwidth problems.
Yeah, I want to loop back to some of like the early Ethereum days. There's got to be fun / hilarious stories or something there. So I want to hear some of those.
Yeah,
or maybe it wasn't that fun or hilarious, but I'm sure there was some cool stuff that like was kind of weird or like that I wouldn't know about yet.
Yeah, so one of the experiments, for example, in the city of Antwerp was we had like we call it the kitten box. So we actually built like a physical wooden box out of it was like an old wine crate or something. I don't remember what it was. And then we sort of motorized it. So we had like a lid that could open automatically when we wanted it to. And then we had like a small display that we're like hacking with hardware. And one of the components that was in there was actually a Raspberry Pi, which was then running like the version back then from Ethereum. So we were still able to quickly spin up like and synchronize the whole Ethereum chain on a Raspberry Pi. So where were those days? But then so we made a smart contract, and we wanted to make like a concept of a club. And so like the Kitten Club was a club where so you could become member. So there was like one seed member that started the club, and you could invite somebody else. And if that person invited somebody else, then that group of 3 people could go to that kitten box and with their phone, with their app, like sign some transaction that they could actually open the box, and then when the box opened, there was some candy in there that they could have. So the idea was that we sort of try to stimulate people to like form groups and form coalitions so they could like earn more. And so that manifestation was that to like sort of open that box. It was really hilarious. So you have to imagine like an open office floor with all like public servants. So they're like busy with all boring stuff. And then all of a sudden we come like rolling in this strange box and we start explaining, you should make alliances here and this and that. It was pretty hilarious back in the day. This was fun because it was one of the first experiments where you sort of create something that's like physical, that's sort of powered by a blockchain, because it literally all ran on Ethereum. And you must imagine that back in the days we were actually just doing transactions. So imagine doing that now. So back in those days, like a transaction would cost like 1/1000th of a dollar, like a dollar cent or anything like that. So we just like did it on the main chain and just let's do some transactions. We don't care. Imagine.
And so did just a bunch of nerds show up? Like, did a bunch of nerds just show up to like try it, or like was it like public?
Nerds.
Like, who showed up? Was it just you?
Yeah, so it was like that think tank I was in. So that group of 4 people. So we built it, and then we sort of presented it to the rest of the audience there, just as a social experiment on the work floor there. Sort of that link.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
Sort of that physical aspect, and like empowering something with a blockchain was like it's all magic.
And when you're that early on, it's really that's all you can do. Is just go, what do I use this for? You know, what can I even make?
Yeah, so imagine, so one of the things we encountered back then was that whole fiasco with the DAO on Ethereum. You probably remember. So the experiments I'm explaining now were like from before those days. So there was really absolutely no context what the technology could be used for and how people could sort of collaborate. So that DAO sort of in that build-up, it was really like, it's very clever to see that you're actually using this technique of smart contracts to like group people and like permissionlessly group funds together. So these concepts, but it was really quite the journey to explore these things. So a lot of experimentation came with that, which was actually quite fun.
Yeah. So the main stories I can contribute sort of is always about hackings, which are not so much fun, but I think it's always interesting to see how the community reacts to those. So there was one hack in 2016. There was DEFCON 2. It was the developer conference of Ethereum. It was in Shanghai, and so all developers, all the Ethereum Foundation, all people that had anything to do with Ethereum were in Shanghai. And as you know, China has a very strict firewall, so it's pretty hard to do anything on a computer that is not, or within the censorship part of China. So there was a hacker. Maybe he timed it because people were in Shanghai. I'm not sure. He made a way that he bloated the blockchain with empty blocks. So there was empty blocks floating like a denial of service attack. It was crowding the blockchain, so that no other transactions could really go through, because these blocks were all flooding in there. And so it was really, I saw this hectic moment in the whole community that they were, we were in this big conference room, somebody was presenting, but nobody was paying attention to him because they were all on their phone, like one message came through and then people were going crazy about that. And but I think the interesting part is that so first of all, they found a way to circumvent the firewall and still get onto the chain and then do stuff on chain and change things on the core protocol. So that's one thing. And it was really interesting to see that they all grouped. So really the best thing was that they were all together, because they really could physically meet in a room, like the core developers, and discuss, what are we doing now? How can we stop this? What is the source of this? Why is this happening? What do we need to change? And so it took them a day and a half to solve that. And I think if it would have happened outside of this conference, it would have been much more because of decentralization, to be honest, because everybody would be in a different place. The coordination would be much tougher. So they were sitting at a computer. I could look at, or not I, but they could look at the other person's computer and help each other. And that's how they overcame this quite fast, to be honest. It wasn't really a dent in so maybe nobody really notices it now, but it was back then. It was huge. It was a real problem for a few days at least. And
so Ethereum was down, or it was just kind of slow?
No, it was totally slow. It was just not usable at all. It really didn't work at all. It's like today. No, just kidding.
Today it's just expensive.
It's just very expensive. Yeah, it still works, but it's just very expensive. I guess that's something.
Also, something heartwarming that I found, it seems like in the previous project that we did together. So we did a token sale back in in late 2016. So really before that first bull run that took off for Ethereum. And at a certain point, so you had the parity hack, so where there was some sort of a bug, a sort of configuration bug in the multisig, and were a couple of projects that were affected and basically got all their funding stolen amongst these projects was our project. But the nice thing then to see was that even though it was then decentralized, the amount of coordination and in the speed that it went on, because there were so many people white hat hackers that really wanted to fix that problem, because a lot of people are of course into that blockchain and have they're sort of invested in that, so they want to make sure that it succeeds. It was really heartwarming to see how much support we got back then from that whole community, because they immediately went out, they looked at the logs and pulled sort of other contracts that were based on the same code, and then they applied the hack to safeguard those funds. And then after a week or two, they sort of set up a whole system that they could refund all these projects. So they really made sure that, I think back then there was around 100,000 ethers that got stolen, I think in total, or even more.
150,000 got stolen, but then so you have to keep in mind this wallet that we used was a multi-sig wallet, so it needs it has 5 signatures, and for every transaction you want to do, you need 3 signatures. So otherwise it wouldn't work. So this hacker found a way to put the signatures to 0. It was more of a development solution that they put in when they created this, so that they could sort of test on it and do stuff, and they left it in there somehow. So that there was some part of the code was just left in there, and nobody noticed it. There was more than 500 projects, real big projects, Gnosis, Status, whatever. In our project, we all used this wallet because it was for Parity, and Parity is, from the co-founder of Ethereum, and everybody trusted that this was the best technology at this point. So, but then one day, this hacker found a way to put the signatures to 0. And so it was actually, I found, or I realized that we got hacked because I sort of looked at our account, and it was there was only breadcrumbs in there, 0.005, whatever ETH was left, and everything else was gone. It was one transaction that went out. 44,000 ETH went out from our wallet back then. And so I thought, so our project, so 3 people colluded, and they ran off with the money. But I knew them so well that I couldn't believe that. So I was in panic. I really reached out and then to the community and said, I think we got hacked. I mean, this is really crazy. Our wallet is everything is gone. And then so I remember the first response. It was a group on Skype that was around my Ether wallet was back then. It's now called My Crypto, where they always were concerned about hacks and supported and informed the community about any scams and so on. So I went into this community and said, I think we got hacked, and showed them the address and everything. And the first reaction was, what is your COA? And I'm like, what does that mean? you're no, you're not even CEO. What is your call to action or something? He said, but only in abbreviation. I was in panic. I was like, I'm panicking. That was my reaction. So it was really, really crazy. And then, as Stefan said, so this community then that I reached out to, there's some white hat hackers was in there, luckily. And they looked at it and they found that this vulnerability really quick, actually, after they knew what they had to search for. So what they did was, since 500 wallets are using this technology with more than $200 million of value back then, today it would be whatever billions, they hacked all of them so that the hacker wouldn't do it himself. So they were trying to be faster than the hacker, and collected all the money from these wallets. Now, they couldn't communicate it because otherwise other people would get to the same thought and then would also hack them for reasons. So the whole community was going crazy. They're like, we got hacked, and we got hacked as well. And they couldn't say that it's us, we're doing this for the good, and who would believe them anyways, So it was really crazy. And then after a day and a half, after they sort of drained all the wallets that they could find, they announced that they did that, and it was also legally. It's totally not clear if they did something illegal now or legal or whatever. And these people were all, again, by coincidence, most of them were in Barcelona based at that point. They were also a group gathering. And they locked themselves in for 2 weeks. I mean, it sounds funny, like after 2 weeks they found a solution and transferred the money back. In the 2 weeks, they had $200 million of value in cryptocurrency on their accounts, on their computers. So they locked themselves in, and they had like a baseball bat next to the door. And then if anybody was ringing, they were really cautious about that. They were really scared and crazy paranoid at that moment. So they reached out to the community, said, we have the money, but we cannot transfer it back because there is no secure way, no secure wallet. And we cannot transfer it to one address that one person owns because then, there's no trust in that. So they needed to transfer it to wallets that have the same setup as before with the same signatures so that you could verify that people really would get the money back that it belonged to. So it took them about 2 weeks, but this was a great community effort. They created a new wallet from scratch almost, and built this very, very secure new multi-sig wallet, and deployed that, and the community audited it, and then they transferred the money back. And so the money was all transferred back. Every project was happy besides us because we were really hacked by the hacker. So all it was gone, but the community was saved kind of by these white hat hackers, and that's pretty amazing that they had this money and didn't just say, hey guys, I'm going to a Caribbean island and see you. No, they really transferred it back and really believe that's true.
And that really speaks to what this new Web3 community is like, is because it is open, it is sharing. I've worked in a number of industries, and the story you tell is extraordinary, but it's not out of the ordinary for some of the things that happen in and around blockchain. I think that's a fabulous way for us to kind of thank you guys for your time. Thank you for the story, and more than anything else, please, last parting words of how do people find Avado? What should they buy? And is there any coupon codes you want to share?
Well, we didn't prepare any coupon codes, but we have, so our website is ava.do, ava.do. So Avado, our name, just a dot between the Ava and the DO. You can find us on Twitter as well with Avado. Reach out to us, contact us. This is the website. You can see it right now. Anything else to add from your side?
Wait, which one should they buy? They should not buy the least expensive one, right? They want at least the i7. Which one do they want to buy?
Yeah, so if you're like staking Ethereum, if that's your only goal, I think the i7 232, so like the middle part, should set you up for like being able to participate for the next 2.5 years at least. If you want to also stake something else, like if you want to stake Avalanche, for example, you also have to you have a full copy of the Avalanche blockchain or Quotum likewise, and then you'd better go with the 432. So the difference is that the latter one has 4 terabytes of storage, as where the other one has 2 terabytes of storage. So those would be the options. So if you're like a single staker, go for the middle one. If you want to stake on multiple chains, go for the right one.
Awesome. Thanks for coming by, guys. It was super fun hearing some of the stories, and you're up to some really cool stuff. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, guys.
For having us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Perfect.
It was a lot of fun. Okay. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Take care.